This is the first province in Canada that there was legal action taken, and I was working with, alongside the Minister of Education at the time when this law came out. So you cannot legislate kindness, but when a province decides to put into law anything, what it is saying is that we have our eye on the prize, that it is legally not acceptable, and it is, you would be held accountable for a certain type of activity. That sets the moral compass in a province, and that gives all of us something to point to, that here is where you draw the line. Because bullying is not a rite of passage. It is not a normal and expected experience of childhood. So to really understand what bullying is, there are three broad categories that we can appreciate in any country I'm in. These three things are accepted as what defines bullying, and if they're not all present, it's not really considered bullying. So I'm not suggesting that is the case. I am suggesting that labels sometimes get in our way of action, and that you are advocates and you have to trust your own judgment very often. And if we talk about behaviors versus labels, it's helpful to parents and it's helpful to us, so that you're not labeling a child a bully. You're talking about the child's behavior, unacceptable behavior. So there are many things that go on that constitute cruelty. And I don't think that, and I mean, I've seen this happen in some countries, if some behavior doesn't fall under the rubric of bullying, it's not treated. We have to respond to every act of unkindness or cruelty that happens. Whether it's formally bullying or not, it's not the case. We have to respond to any behavior that is cruel. So for an act to be repetitious, that means daily or over time, multiple times. Intentional, this is the big thing. Bullying is an intentional act. We know that preschool children are incredibly active and incredibly impulsive. They generally do not sit down and plot. They generally respond in the moment. And some children, when you think about their temperament, and all the seeds people and the roots people will know I'm a temperament freak, that I think we understand children far more kindly when we think through the lens of the various temperament traits that they are born with. You wouldn't criticize a child because they've got blonde hair. What do you mean you've got blonde hair? But if a child is born with very high level of intensity, we shouldn't be criticizing them because they have meltdowns. We shouldn't be criticizing them because they cry very easily or they overreact to excitement and you have to pull them down from the ceiling. We should be helping them understand that they are highly intense and that you often need to be able to understand yourself to be able to predict how you're going to respond rather than thinking that it's a moral flaw. So when we think about intentionality as being one of the three indicators that an act is considered bullying, it's not very often you get preschool children who are intentionally, repeatedly doing something cruel with the intention of hurting someone. Because bullying is fully informed cruelty. People know that what they're doing is hurting someone, and that's part of it. The difficulty with, and again to address your goal of understanding what's developmentally appropriate or predictable and what's corrosive, we know that theory of mind with little children starts to get into gear at 3. According to experiences,
some children earlier and some children later. But the ability to understand that other people think, the ability to take perspective, has everything to do with intentionally hurting someone. To intentionally hurt someone, you have to understand that that person has feelings and they're going to be very upset. And that is related to the third one, which is the power. Bullying is very much connected to domestic violence. So somebody spoke about the lifespan. What is the lifespan and how does it change over time and over gender? I guess I introduced gender, but what is the life course of early bullying? And for little boys, very much early bullying behavior translates to domestic violence. And the studies have yet to be done. I've spoken to some people who are in the violence field and in domestic violence, and they have no interest in preschool. They are all about women's rights. So it's very difficult to cross-fertilize fields.